The lights cut out in the Busan Besco Auditorium, and 12,000 people go completely silent. Then the bass drops, the stage floods blue, and the noise hits you like a wall. Two players walk out. One is Lee Flash Young-ho. The other is Lee Jae-dong. It is 2010, and they are about to play a game that came out 12 years ago. This is not nostalgia. This is the moment competitive gaming became a real sport. And to understand how a $40 PC game from 1998 turned South Korea into the blueprint for every esports league that exists today, you have to go back to the beginning. Blizzard did not set out to create esports. They set out to make a great RTS, and they succeeded so thoroughly that they broke the genre open. StarCraft launched on March 31st, 1998, and within weeks something unexpected happened. South Korea had just finished building the world's most advanced broadband infrastructure. A government push to modernize after the 1997 Asian financial crisis. Millions of young Koreans suddenly had high-speed internet and nowhere to go. PC bangs, internet gaming cafes, exploded across the country. Over 23,000 of them opened between 1998 and 2001. And the game they were all playing was StarCraft. Nobody marketed it this way. StarCraft became South Korea's national game because the timing was cosmically perfect. An impossibly deep competitive game arriving at the exact moment an entire generation needed an escape. By 2000, two cable television networks, OnGameNet and MBC Game, had launched dedicated 24-hour StarCraft channels. Not gaming channels, StarCraft channels. Imagine a universe where ESPN2 existed exclusively to broadcast one game. The Korean Esports Players Association was founded in 2000 under the Korean Ministry of Culture. The government did not just tolerate competitive StarCraft, they legitimized it. Players received pro-athlete visas. Teams formed around corporate sponsors, Samsung Con, SK Telecom T1, KT Rolster. These were not scrappy gaming houses. These were subsidiaries of the largest conglomerates in Asia. The expansion pack Brood War, released in December 1998, is where the real story begins. And the reason is mechanical. Unit pathfinding is bad on purpose. Control groups are limited to 12 units. There is no autocast, no smartcast, no quality of life. The gap between a good player and a great one is the ability to perform 300 to 400 actions per minute perfectly for 30 minutes straight while reading your opponent's mind. The skill expression is closer to playing a musical instrument at concert speed than it is to playing a modern video game. Before Flash and Jae-dong, there was Lim Boxer Yo-hwan, the first true StarCraft superstar and the player who proved this game could make someone famous. His SCV rush in a championship final, using worker units, the weakest in the game, as an offensive weapon. Marine splitting, moving individual Marines to dodge splash damage, turned into an art form. But Boxer's real legacy is not his mechanics. He made StarCraft watchable. The Korean media called him the Emperor of Tyrant, and they meant it. When Boxer walked into a stadium, people screamed. By 2005, StarCraft Brood War was 7 years old. In the normal life cycle of a competitive game, it should have been dead twice over. Instead, it entered the most dominant era any esports title has ever had. Lee Flash Young-ho debuted in the professional scene in 2007 at age 15. Within 2 years, he was the best player who had ever lived. Within 4, the argument was over. Flash was not just the best StarCraft player of all time. He might be the greatest competitor in the history of electronic sports. Full stop. 3 MSL titles, 3 OSL titles, an all-time win rate of 70.03%, across hundreds of professional matches in the hardest competitive game ever made. He won his first televised match at 15. He won his last Brood War title before he turned 21. But the numbers do not capture what made Flash terrifying. It was the way he won. Flash played Tyrant, the most mechanically demanding race in Brood War. at a level that made other professionals look like they were playing a different game. He did not beat opponents, he solved them. There is a famous clip where Flash is behind on resources, behind on army supply, behind on map control, losing by every measurable metric. He wins, not by a miracle play or a desperate all-in. He wins because he sees a strategic line that his opponent has not even considered. The Korean fans called him God, not as hyperbole, as a statement of observed fact. You need a rival to make a dynasty, and Lee Jae-dong was the perfect one. Where Flash was cold, methodical, surgical, Jae-dong was violent. He played Zerg with an aggression that felt personal. Jae-dong did not just attack you, he attacked you from 3 angles, with 4 different unit compositions at 350 actions per minute, while simultaneously expanding to 2 new bases and scouting your main with an overlord. His multitasking was so extreme that casters could not keep up. 2 MSL titles, 3 OSL titles, a career record that would make him the undisputed greatest of all time, if Flash did not exist. The tragedy of Jae-dong is that he was a generational talent who happened to share a generation with a god. He was Federer to Flash's Nadal, except the gap was even smaller. Their head-to-head record was close enough to be a coin flip. The 2009 Bacchus OSL Final. Flash comes in as the overwhelming favorite. Analysts are openly asking whether Tyrant is even beatable at the highest level. Jae-dong takes him to a deciding game. Game 5 goes long. Flash takes a positioning advantage at 13 minutes. Jae-dong does what Jae-dong does. A multi-pronged attack that forces Flash to defend in 3 places simultaneously. For 45 seconds, both players are performing at a level of mechanical execution that borders on inhuman. Flash holds barely. Jae-dong types GG. 12,000 people lose their minds. The camera cuts to Flash, and he does not celebrate. He just nods. Because for Flash, winning is not an event. It is a state of being. When Blizzard released StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty in July 2010, the assumption was simple. The new game would replace the old one. The pros would transition. The Korean infrastructure would carry over seamlessly. None of that happened cleanly. The problem was fundamental. StarCraft 2 was a better game, but a worse sport. Blizzard smoothed out all the mechanical brutality that made Brood War competitive. Pathfinding worked. Control groups were unlimited. Autocast existed. The quality of life improvements compressed the skill gap. KSPA initially refused to adopt StarCraft 2, keeping their players on Brood War, while a separate league, the GSL, launched as the premier SC2 competition. For 2 years, Korean StarCraft was split in half. Brood War on one side, SC2 Pioneers on the other. When KSPA finally transitioned their players in 2012, it created one of the most fascinating experiments in competitive gaming history. The Brood War gods, Flash, Jae-dong, Bisu, dropped into a game they had been ignoring for 2 years and had to prove themselves again. Flash adapted. Of course he did. He reached multiple finals in SC2, proving that his talent was transferable. But he never dominated SC2 the way he dominated Brood War. Nobody did. The lower mechanical ceiling meant more players could compete at the top. What SC2 lacked in Korean dominance, it made up for in global reach. Finland's Serral became the first non-Korean to win a premier StarCraft tournament outright. Here is the part that should be impossible. StarCraft Brood War came out in 1998. As of 2026, it is 28 years old, and it is not just alive, it is thriving. The Africa StarCraft League continues to run professional Brood War tournaments with full production, commentary, and crowds. New strategies are still being discovered. In a game that has been played at the professional level for over 2 decades, players are still finding build orders that have never been tried. The game is so deep that 28 years of professional play has not exhausted its strategic space. That does not happen. Games die, metas solve, player bases move on, but Brood War endures. Now pull all the way back. Every esports league that exists today owes a debt to StarCraft. The team houses, the coaching systems, the broadcast production, the government recognition, the fan culture, it all became the template. The concept of a pro gamer as a legitimate career, StarCraft invented it. Sponsorship deals, StarCraft. Televised gaming with professional commentary, StarCraft. When Riot Games built the LCS, they studied OGN. When Valve created the Dota 2 International, they looked at the OSL format. The difference is that StarCraft never needed a publisher to force the ecosystem into existence. It grew because the game was deep enough to sustain it. Everything since has been an attempt to manufacture what StarCraft created by accident. Flash won his last Brood War title before he was old enough to drink in America. That nod after Game 5 was not a player accepting a win. It was the moment esports proved it could produce something that looked, felt, and hit like a real sport. We just were not watching. The lights in the Busan Bexco Auditorium went down in 2010, and they never really came back up anywhere else. Not like that. 28 years later, the game still sells out arenas. That is not nostalgia. That is proof. If you want more stories like this, subscribe to IFL PvP and hit that bell. We will see you in the next one.